Disgraced Harvard president Claudine Gay has just resigned. She's just resigned. It's been 6 months into this scandal. She has had a scandal-plagued term there at Harvard. She's the president there, Claudine Gay. So over the past few weeks, she's kind of been facing this mounting criticism, and there have been a lot of calls for her to step down over her handling of anti-Semitism on campus in wake of this Hamas October 7th terrorist attack on Israel. She's not been handling the anti-Semitism on campus very well at all, and she's also been facing some accusations of plagiarism as well. In fact, she did plagiarize, and now she's been forced really to resign. And I'm excited because we're going to talk a lot about that here in the 7 o'clock hour. Good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. You can always find me live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. And we've got so much to talk about this morning. And as always, go ahead, find me on social media. You can also text me during the show at 309-451-9299. Now, what are we talking about here in the 6 o'clock hour? A hot mic caught an ABC anchor saying higher ups made her actually ditch this Epstein story. She had Clinton, she had Bill Clinton, she had everything. This ABC anchor exposes this on a hot mic. And now there's all these new revelations coming out about Jeffrey Epstein. We know Senator Dick Durbin of Illinois tried to stop these flight logs, or wasn't willing to have these flight logs be released. Senator Blackburn called him out for that. He was confronted. I played the clip yesterday where he was being chased down by a reporter, and she kept asking him, "Hey, why didn't you advocate for the release of the flight logs?" And I'm so sick of people calling me QAnon. And they're like, they use it as a derogatory term, and I'm so confused by that, because go ahead, call me QAnon. The leftists, they'll say, in Annie from the Washington Post, she called me QAnon, and she described what QAnon was in the article, and she said that QAnon is somebody that has this belief that Democrats align themselves with the latest pedophiles. Well, Dick, you are a Democrat, and you've aligned yourself with an elitist pedophile. I don't know. I would even say you are defending an elitist pedophile. You're on the defense for an elitist pedophile. That's more than alignment with an elitist pedophile. Okay, you've gone as far as to defend an elitist pedophile by not being very clear and releasing those flight logs, and telling the American people, telling the Illinois residents, the people whom you serve, very clearly that you want these flight logs to be released. And we've got the hot mic catching the anchor saying that she had the story back in 2016, but her producer killed the story. So we're going to talk about that, plus Elon Musk roasting Green Day's embarrassing anti-MAGA pandering with the American Idiot performance. I'm going to go through that. I do like Green Day a lot. I used to. I probably will change my bump music. You guys know that I use American Idiot. I kind of was using it ironically, uh, because obviously they are, anti. I'll get to the lyrics here in a second, but they're anti-rule America in a lot of their songs. So we'll talk about Elon Musk. He roasts Green Day, and I thought it was a great tweet. And then also dog training. I didn't get to the story yesterday. It's a battleground because right now trainers are at each other's throats. They're debating on whether or not disciplining your dog is actually systemic oppression. Yes. So training your dog is somehow racist. Using physical discipline is somehow racist. Now, I'm not saying abuse dogs, okay, but there's nothing wrong with a little bit of physical discipline, pinch collars, things like that, shock collars. But there's all kinds of debate right now because apparently that's racism. So let's get into it. And as always, live, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. If you're heading over there, go ahead, smash the like button while you're there and subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's Cat Peterson 929. And let's get into it. ABC News. They're reporting hundreds of sealed court filings pertaining to the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, and they're set to be made public this week. I actually have seen a couple of things, but I'm going to sit on it for a while because I don't want to misreport anything over the air. I've seen a few of the flight logs with some of the names. A lot of things were redacted. So this week we should get a better picture of what those flight logs and who were on the flight logs. For right now, I think it's pretty safe to say that we've seen some pretty prominent names like Prince Andrew and Bill Clinton in these flight logs. So we're expecting more to come out this week on the flight logs and the client lists and things like that. But ABC News is reporting on this week. Yesterday, I told you about how Tucker Carlson is planning to interview with Jeffrey Epstein's brother. Epstein's brother, he actually went and he tried to obtain this very basic document. It's something that EMS fills out when they move a body. So they obviously had to move Jeffrey Epstein's body out of the cell because he killed himself in his jail cell. Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. Sorry, I've got a little bit of a cold, but so his brother went to go get those documents, and they said those documents don't exist. What do you mean those documents don't exist? It's a pre-hospital care report, and really, what EMS is supposed to do, they make note of the condition of the body when they move the body, but they didn't even have those documents. So there's so much coming out about Jeffrey Epstein this week. And what's funny about all of this is when you remember that this network, ABC News, had this story back in 2016, but they squashed it. So I want to kind of take a trip back into the Wayback Machine. We know, thanks to James O'Keefe, he leaked this video of ABC's Amy Robach. Okay, so she was an anchor, an ABC anchor, and she was caught on a hot mic. This batch will involve names, additional Epstein associates. This batch of names that we're going to be getting here this week, there's going to be names of associates, alleged perpetrators, alleged co-conspirators, alleged victims, witnesses, and former Epstein employees. So that's what we're supposed to be getting with this batch of names with these flight logs that have been released. Thank you to Senator Blackburn. And Dick, we owe you nothing for these names because you tried to stop the release of this, or you weren't. Dick really was not advocating for the release of these things. I'll say that. But several Does, so there's John Does mentioned in the documents, are now deceased because it's been like four years, and these are really crusty old men, pedophiles who were taking advantage of young girls, and uh, Jeffrey Epstein was trafficking these young girls to crusty old men. Former President Clinton is one of those crusty old men. We've identified a lot of Does in these documents as of right now. We can say for sure ABC News has learned the identity of Doe 36. So there's a Doe 36 named in these flight logs. It was all done very anonymously. Jeffrey Epstein wasn't an idiot. He was smart, and he had all of these anonymous John Does. So there's a John Doe 36, and you can see this more than 50 times in the redacted filings here, these court filings. So it's John Doe 36, and that's according to court records. ABC News has identified John Doe 36 as former President Bill Clinton. So, like I said, we're taking a trip back in time. So, put yourself in the year 2019. Jeffrey Epstein, he is a prominent Democrat and pedophile, and he was found guilty of sex trafficking. And then he killed, air quotes, killed himself while in jail. And as all of this came to fruition, as we started to learn more about Jeffrey Epstein, and he actually was found guilty of sex trafficking, we've got this ABC News anchor. Her name is Amy Robach, and she was unaware, I guess, of the term hot mic, and she went on a rant while she was on set, and she said that she had the story 3 years 2016. Her producer killed the story. Oh boy. And I'm gonna share some of this leaked audio. This was from Project Veritas about 4 years ago, and, she said that she had the story 3 years ago, and she said that she had all of the parts, including Bill Clinton's parts. So back in 2016, the producer killed the story, not unlike Jeffrey Epstein killing himself. Uh, but the producer killed the story. Also in 2016, it's important to note that Bill's wife, Hillary Clinton, was running for president. She lost bigly, but the media still tried their best. O'Keefe got his hands on this behind the scenes footage. I'm going to share this with us here this morning. Here it is, the leaked clip from Project Veritas 4 years ago. I wanted to take a trip in the Wayback Machine. Here we go.
I've had the story for 3 years. I've had this interview with Virginia Roberts. We would not put it on the air. First of all, I was told, who's Jeffrey Epstein? No one knows who that is. This is a stupid story. Then the palace found out that we had her whole allegations about Prince Andrew and threatened us a million different ways. We were so afraid we wouldn't be able to interview Kate and Will that also quashed the story. And then Alan Dershowitz was also implicated in it because of the planes. She told me everything. She had pictures. She had everything. She was in hiding for 12 years. We convinced her to come out. We convinced her to talk to us. It was unbelievable what we had. Clinton, we had everything. I tried for 3 years to get it on, to no avail, and now it's all coming out, and it's like these new revelations, and I freaking had all of it. I'm so pissed right now. Like every day I get more and more pissed because I'm just like, oh my God, what we had was unreal. Other women backing it up. Hey, yep. Brad Edwards, the attorney, 3 years ago, saying
So this was Amy Robach. She was leaked. ABC News, they shortly after that launched a full investigation. No, no, no. I know what you're thinking. No, they didn't launch an investigation into who spiked the story and why they did it and who killed the story, why they killed the story, why they wouldn't let Amy run with it. They launched an investigation into who leaked this tape that I just played for you, and they actually fired somebody over it. Her name she was a producer, and her name was Ashley Bianco. And of course, Bianco didn't leak the tape. She didn't even take the film to James O'Keefe. She doesn't even know really who James O'Keefe is. All she did was mark this moment. Okay, that's all she did. That's her only crime here is that she marked this moment in this ABC hot mic. That's what producers do, and she'll explain that here in just a second. Ashley Bianco, who's the producer who marked the moment when it happened. That's what producers do. She got fired from her new employers at CBS News because of what she did at ABC, and she marked it. And she actually got fired from not ABC, but CBS, which was a new employer of hers. She used to work for ABC, then she moved over to CBS. And she didn't even have the opportunity to defend herself. So Megyn Kelly has already sat down with Ashley and talked with her about this and asked her, hey, was it right that they fired you?
I loved my job.
Was this the first time you had ever clipped a segment of an anchor off mic?
No, I mean, we do it all the time. I'm part of my job is I'm like a video editor. I clip off moments all the time. I put together, funny anchor reels of, them off camera doing funny stuff to use later in the show.
Did you go back and watch it later?
I didn't. No, I didn't think about it after that day.
So was that the last you had to do with that clip?
Yeah, I didn't touch it. I didn't do anything else with that.
You never went back to it?
I never went back to it.
You didn't download it? You didn't email it? You didn't transfer that file in any way?
No, not at all. I didn't touch it after that. It stayed in the system. I hadn't even heard of Project Veritas until this.
When was this moment with Amy?
It was in August 19th.
And then in the fall, you decided to leave ABC to go where?
To CBS. and I only left purely because CBS had offered me a good contract. And so I left, and I was just really excited to start a new job.
And so this week you're sitting at CBS doing your job.
Yeah.
And what happens with Project Veritas?
They released the video, and I was shocked, but I didn't think anything of it.
How many days had you been at CBS?
Only 4 days, and I begged, I pleaded. I didn't know what I had done wrong. And I just, I wasn't even given the professional courtesy to defend myself,
Wow. That's explosive, folks. This is explosive. And yeah, she didn't even have the opportunity to defend herself. As for these new revelations, I know everybody's like, oh, yeah, this is it. This is it. This is it. They've got all of these elitist pedophiles on the ropes. So I don't know. As much as I'm a sucker for any excuse to revisit the Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself jokes, I believe the names that are being unsealed. I'll believe that the names are unsealed when I see the names unsealed. Right now, there's just not enough for me to go out on air and say, "Oh yeah, these are the names. These are the people." Uh, I'll believe it when I see it. So I've got to take a quick break. This is the Morning Buzz. You can always find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. While you're there, smash the like button, share this video out with your normie friends. And you can always text me at 309-451-9299. Also, this hour, we're going to be talking about Elon Musk roasting Green Day. I actually really like Green Day, but they did this very embarrassing anti-MAGA pandering with this American Idiot performance. That's a song of theirs. So Elon Musk roasted them, and it's pretty good. So we're back next. Good morning, friends. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. Go ahead, smash that like button if you're watching. And as I said before, we are going to be visiting this Green Day embarrassing moment where they used this anti-MAGA pandering in their song and in their performance. Also, a little bit later, you guys are going to like this one. Here we go. Claudine Gay. We know that Claudine Gay, she is resigned now. We're going to be talking a lot about that in the 7:00 hour. Now, this is a crazy story. We've got this guy, he's transgender and he's an inmate, and he sued the jail. And this story out of Missouri, because Missouri wasn't having it, but he sued the jail, this transgender inmate, because he was denied a sex change while he was in jail and he wanted access to women's panties. And they said, no, you're a sex offender. We're not going to be doing that. And then he was like, okay, then I'll sue you. Remember that time when a woman who had a history of violence got placed in a man's prison because of trans rights or something like that? I don't remember that either. That's because that statement has never happened, where a woman wants to be placed into a man's prison because of trans rights. That's never happened. And if it has, that's very, very rare. And I've never seen that moment in history. But you do see this a lot of the time. And this is actually true in McLean County. We have a trans individual. He's being housed separately right now, not with the women. But who knows? Maybe one day he'll want to be housed with the women and we'll have to let him. I don't know. But a lot of men try to get housed with women, especially violent sex offenders. They want to be housed with the women when they are convicted and jailed. So it never happens, because there's a reason why you never see women begging to run to men's prisons because, of their truth or whatever, oh, I want to live my truth, so I'm going to go stay in a man's prison. No, that it never happens. More often than that, we see men being afforded insane special treatment that would otherwise be condemned if it weren't under the guise of trans rights. We would condemn this if men were trying to take the trans element away, take that away. And if men just wanted special treatment and they didn't want to be housed with the men, but they would prefer to be housed with the women for whatever reason, we would condemn that totally. Take just a man who does not identify as a woman, okay? A man who wants to be housed with women in jail, come on. Um, so yes, this is an incredible story because Missouri did not acquiesce to this crap. They did not bend the knee, and now they're getting sued by a man with a history of violence because he wasn't given women's panties to correctly affirm his truth, not the truth, but his truth. So we're back in just a little bit. Smash the like button and share this out with your normie friends. Hey, don't miss it. A little bit later, we are going to be chatting about this trans inmate. Yes, so there's a trans inmate in Missouri. We've got one here in McLean County, but he's being housed separately from both the men and the women. But in Missouri, this guy, he's big upset. He's big mad because he was denied a sex change. He wanted a sex change while he was in jail. Mind you, this is a violent sex offender. And he's jailed right now in Missouri, and he was denied a sex change, and he actually wanted access to women's panties while he was in jail. And because Missouri wasn't going to acquiesce to this crap, they're getting sued now by this guy who has a history of violence. And it's all because he wasn't given women's panties to correctly affirm his truth, not the truth, but his truth. Don't miss that story. It's going to be a great one. Now, I do want to talk about Elon Musk roasting Green Day. You guys know it's a part of my bumper music. I'm gonna get rid of it here probably because this is just too embarrassing. This was a New Year's Eve tradition. So part of a New Year's Eve tradition here is the networks, ABC, CBS, the Alphabet news networks. They collect a bunch of artists who aren't quite in their prime anymore, and they perform until the ball drops. So that's what they do New Year's Eve, ABC, CNN. CNN, they even busted out Anderson Cooper, and they gave him shots and they got him drunk on TV again because they wanted to increase their ratings for some that's the only way they could increase their ratings. But anyway, these networks they get together and they get these bunch of washed up artists who perform and they're not in their prime anymore and then they perform until the ball drops at midnight. So some of us, we were watching what's left of Leonard Skinner, and some of you may have caught Green Day reliving 2004, only with MAGA as their new boogeyman. So Green Day, they've always been very liberal. I have some of that as my bump music. American Idiot, actually, because I kind of use it ironically. I think it's a good song. And Elon Musk actually had some words on X Twitter for Green Day and he roasted them. But before I get to that, here's the original lyrics. So Green Day performed this song, American Idiot. It's my bumper music. I know the lyrics. It's the original lyrics are, well, maybe I'm a gay man that rhymes with the word maggot. I don't know if I can say that word on the air. So, well, maybe I'm a blank America. I'm not a part of a redneck agenda. Rednecks were who the left blamed for not getting their way back in Green Day's protest era, the Bush era. So the left blamed the rednecks. Now they blame half of the country, which is MAGA Republicans. But here are the new lyrics by Green Day. As always, I'm live YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Woo! So he changed the lyrics to "I'm not a part of a MAGA agenda." So he is well, Green Day, they've made MAGA their new boogeyman. So some of you out there, you young bloods, you may not believe this. Some of you young bloods, Green Day used to be cool, like really cool. I've heard stories. I wasn't really in this era. It missed me. My sister is much older than I am, and she really liked Green Day, but they were really cool, like camping out, lighting bonfires outside of Tower Records, waiting for tickets to go on sale, only for the show to sell out after the first two people in line got tickets. Cool. Like they used to be really cool, Green Day. Yes, old heads, they had to leave the house to go buy some concert tickets. It was a really weird time. I know these younger people are probably looking at me like, what? You would go out of your house and buy tickets? You just do that all on Ticketmaster. Now, no, but it was a weird time. You had to go and actually physically go buy concert tickets. So American Idiot, it was a concept album. It was a brilliant commentary on the times and a preview of our current culture wars, really. So this was a protest song and every other protest song from that era sect. I really like American Idiot. Now they've got a couple of things wrong. It's not really the rednecks that are causing all of these issues. It's these elitists, the establishment. He goes, I'm not a part of this redneck agenda. Every other protest song era from that era sucked. They had a lazy chorus, lazy verse, and no blood for oil. Rushed out of the studio and was uploaded onto things like MySpace. This was this time, the 2000s, the Bush era. It was the Bush era version of Disney putting a chick in it, putting a chick in the movie, making the chick gay and lame. Okay, so there were a lot of protest songs, but a lot of them were terrible. This American Idiot was actually pretty good. The anti-Bush songs were woke before the right culturally appropriated the word from the left. So yeah, there's been like wokeness going on for quite some time. This isn't like a new thing with Bud Light. It's not a new thing with Target. This has been going on, and Green Day was kind of at the helm of that way back when. Now, the years since this time, this era, this Bush era, haven't been really kind to Billy Joe Armstrong. Now, I don't like George Bush. I'll say it. I didn't like George Bush, and he's a part of the establishment. I've said it before, the Yankees and the Cowboys. The Yankees are the Democrats. They're the big banks financing part of it, the globalism part of it, and then you've got big oil, you've got Texas Oil, you've got the military industrial complex. Those are the Cowboys, and both of them are uniparty. And like Green Day, I don't like those people. I don't like the Bushes. I'm not a fan. and but the years haven't been kind to this guy, Billy Joe Armstrong, who's in Green Day. Last we heard from him, he renounced his American citizenship after Roe v. Wade, the ruling there, and he threatened to leave America. He didn't, by the way. And even though in his home state of California, I think this is so funny, they're going to continue to allow birthing people and menstruators to abort their child of just up before the baby comes out for now. Give it some time. California Democrats will probably, in a year or two, make it legal for abortion in like the 17th trimester. You could probably abort your child when they're 7 years old or something. But Green Day has become exactly what Elon Musk has said they've become. Now, Elon Musk put this out there on X, and I think it's absolutely brilliant. He goes, Green Day goes from raging against the machine to milk-toastedly raging for it. Yes. So this is a problem with a lot of lefties, a lot of specifically like Bernie Sanders supporters. The sentiment is there. They've got it. They know something's wrong, but they've got all of these crazy whacked out solutions for it, and it's not the rednecks that are the problem. It's not the MAGA Republicans that are the problem. You're talking about the Bushes. You should be talking about the Bushes, the Clintons, the Yankees, the Cowboys. And look, I doubt any of the members of Green Day saw Elon's burn here. He totally sizzle burned this Green Day. I doubt they saw it, because not unlike all of the liberal celebrities who pledged to leave America if George Bush got elected, and then leave America again if Donald Trump got elected, they probably all deleted their X/Twitter accounts. So they probably did not see Elon's tweet here, where he totally roasted Green Day. Maybe someone will share Elon Musk's posts on Threads. On Threads, that's the new it's like the counterpart to X, so they can see it there. That's the left wing Twitter. So maybe somebody will share it onto Threads. We'll see. I've got to take a quick break, but when we come back, this is bizarro. Dog trainers, they're at each other's throats. They're debating on whether or not physically disciplining your dog in some sort of way, pinch collars, things like that. I'm not advocating for abuse. But physically disciplining your dog in some kind of way is not racist. They're going to try to sit there and say that this is systemic oppression. You're oppressing your dog if you put him on a pinch collar, or if you've got a collar or leash on him. You're oppressing your dog. You're insane. I'm back next with that story. Find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Smash the like button, folks. Yes, I can talk today. Smash the like button and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are going to be chatting a little bit about that dog training and how it's a battleground right now, because these trainers are debating whether or not dog training is like white supremacy or systemic oppression for the dog. Apparently physically disciplining your dog. Now, I'm not saying kicking the dog or punching the dog. We have a shock collar on our Shepherd. Our Shepherd is 120 pounds. There is no way that if that dog decided to go bite someone, go run down the road, there is no way that we'd be able to stop a 120-pound dog. We have a shock collar. Now, we only have had to use the shock option once, maybe twice. It's got like a beep, it's got a vibrate, and it's got the shock. We used some physical discipline to correct his behavior. Leftists will tell you that that is racist and that I am a white supremacist, and that is because, or it's systemically oppressive to do that to dogs. You're insane. They're animals. They need physical discipline in some sort of way, even if that is I mean, they will go as far as to say you shouldn't leash and shouldn't collar your dogs and pull your dogs on a leash. They're psychotic. Could you imagine German Shepherds, Pit Bulls, Dobermans, Rottweilers, all of these different types of dogs running free, no collar, nothing. No collar, no leash, no nothing. Could you imagine the world that we'd be living in? Um, so we're going to be chatting a little bit about that and this trans inmate who's big mad because he was denied women's panties while he was in jail. And you won't believe this, the Methodist Church is declaring terms like husband and wife offensive. Yes, the church is declaring the terminology husband, terminology wife. These two words, apparently they're too offensive to use. Yes, and that's the Methodist Church. I will out of UK. There's a Methodist church out of the UK, and I'm just going to mark this as pay attention America, because believe me, there's probably churches here in America that believe the same thing. We're back in just a little bit. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz coming up in the 7 o'clock hour. I'm so excited because guess what? We're going to be talking about Claudine Gay. She resigned, folks, just over 6 months into her scandal-plagued term. So she was 6 months in. She was the Harvard president, Claudine Gay. You guys remember her up there, and she was being very anti-Semitic. Now, over the past few weeks, Claudine Gay has faced mounting criticism and calls for her to step down over her handling of anti Semitism on campus in wake of the Hamas October 7th terrorist attacks in Israel. And she's also facing accusations of plagiarism as well. And she is now resigned. So we're going to be talking about that here coming up in the 7 o'clock hour. Also, you won't want to miss it. A trans inmate in Missouri. Missouri was not bending the knee to this guy. This trans inmate, uh, he wanted women's panties because he wanted to affirm his truth. This is nonsense, and now he's suing the jail because the jail denied him a sex change and denied him access to women's panties. And yeah, Missouri did not bend the knee to this crap, and now they're getting sued by a man with a history of violence. He's a violent sex offender. So we're going to be chatting a little bit about that, and you won't believe it. A Methodist church declares terms like husband and wife offensive. Apparently, it's offensive now if you use the terminology husband and wife, and that's not according to me. That's according to a church. I'll tell you where here coming up in just about 15 minutes. But before we took the break, I was telling you guys a little bit about how dog trainers, they're at each other's throats. They're debating whether or not physical discipline of a dog is white supremacy, if it's systemic oppression. The left, they have questionable moral reasoning at best. And while they claim they want to help the little guy, they really could care less about those who cannot speak or defend themselves. They really don't care about uh, the truly defenseless or the truly true victims. They don't care. Progressives will prioritize animal rights and simultaneously promote things like abortion. It's a federal crime to destroy bald eagles' eggs, and in the same breath, it's promoted as some sort of holy act to murder a defenseless unborn child. That's about all the logic you will find on the left. That's about all of it. And by that, I mean there's no logic at all on the left. So these people are so easily brainwashed. That's because they have no value system that dictates their worldview, like people on the right, you and I, more often. We have a value system, and it dictates what we do, it dictates our value system, our worldview. And on the left, they don't believe in things like universal truths. There are universal truths. Okay, there is hot water and there is cold water. There is good and there is evil. There are men and there are women. They don't believe any of that. They don't believe that 2 plus 2 equals 4. Even if that were true, which it's not, there are universal truths out there. But even if it's true that there are no universal truths, which it's not, that would be a universal truth, that there is no universal truth. But anyway, that's besides the point right now. There is no logic on the left. The point is that man's best friend is racist, misogynistic, and deeply rooted in systemic oppression. So, according to Fox News, New York Times, there's this opinion editor, Alicia Whitmire. She wrote this very lengthy piece observing how the different schools of dog training right now represent woke and anti-woke factions of the American culture war. So there's different ways you can train your dog nowadays because we're in a culture war. And there's the woke way of training your dog and the anti-woke way of training your dog. And this opinion editor, Whitmire, noted that she had seen a steady flow of political rhetoric applied to dogs in recent years, such as one dog owner vowing, quote, "I will not project colonial capitalism or patriarchal concepts on my dog." She noted, this woman, that The politicization of dog training has increased thanks to dog-related influencers. Okay, so this is the thing, I guess. There was this piece done by Whitmire in Fox News. She's an opinion editor. She mentioned this guy. His name is Zach George, and this guy is a dog trainer. He's an influencer who has 3.7 million followers on YouTube. He's very outspoken about rejecting the traditional balanced methods of dog training in favor of positive training. He's also covered subjects ranging from pronouns and trans rights to racism and policing and toxic masculinity, and how all these subjects in some way relates back to dogs. What? Pronouns for dogs? No, 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 no. I'm going to take a quick break, but we're going to wrap up this story here on the other side. Look, I've got a German Shepherd. He's 120 pounds. We got a little shock collar for him. We don't shock him very often. I think we've only done it once. There's 3 settings on the collar. It's the shock, it's the beep, it's the vibrate. You only have to beep him, and then he kind of straightens up right away because he knows that there's a potential to get shocked here. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. He's 120 pounds, folks. Imagine a world, if you will, if we didn't leash dogs, if we didn't discipline dogs in some sort of physical way, especially these big ones like pit bulls, German shepherds, Dobermans, you name it, Rottweilers. Imagine we just allowed those dogs to go unleashed, no collars, no physical discipline in any kind of way. We would be living in complete chaos. We're back next. Good morning. Hey, you better smash that like button. I know you're watching, so you better smash it. We are going to be continuing this story. There's proponents here of positive reinforcement training, which is totally fine. I'm not saying that positive reinforcement training is bad, but I'm definitely not going to say that having some sort of type of physical discipline, whether that be a leash, a pinch collar, a shock collar, I don't think that is bad. I'm not saying beat your dogs, okay? There's a difference between physical discipline, slight physical discipline, and beating your dog, okay? Nobody's beating their dogs here. Every animal knows how stupid all of this crap is, and I've actually got a funny video that I'll be playing here for you. Even the dogs know that pronouns for them, like this guy, Zach George, look him up. He's got 3.7 million followers on YouTube. He says that you should be using pronouns for dogs. And I mean, the dogs know that this is ridiculous, and the cats know that this is ridiculous. I've got this funny YouTube clip that I'll play for you guys here. This girl, she tries to use pronouns for her cat, and the cat knows just how ridiculous this is and bats her face, just hits her face after she says, "This is my cat," and she uses he, her, or she, her pronouns. But we're going to be back. I'm going to take a quick break, grab some coffee. You're listening to The Morning Buzz. Smash that like button if you're watching. Good morning. Hey, go ahead, smash that like button if you're watching. And what do you think? Throw it in the comment section. Are you a balance trainer? Do you use negative reinforcement or negative stimulus to kind of recorrect or correct your dog's behavior? I've always used a shock collar for shepherds. Maybe not all dogs do need that. Like all dogs are different. Maybe not all dogs need a physical type of discipline, but even if you go down to the basics, this guy, Zach George, probably would say that collars and leashes are oppressive and a part of the patriarchy, and you're oppressing your dog if you leash him up. Um, so that in itself is some sort of form of physical discipline. Man's best friend. Dog is for man. And the animals are for man. We have dominion over the animals, and the animals are not supposed to run amok. We're supposed to domesticate, and I mean, essentially, what this guy is saying is that we shouldn't domesticate our animals. And it's just interesting to find that, like, our political ideology has leaked into things as simple as dog training. Okay, like I said, despite seemingly being in a debate over training household pets, these two schools tend to correlate with political ideology with unsettling precision. This is part of the article here that Whitmire wrote up about the dog training. And I just find it very interesting. The left having no foundational purpose in their lives, and the best they can do is just kind of figure out ways. They're constantly finding ways to make their life meaningful. And they do a really bad job of it because there's this absence of religion. And look, this guy has millions of followers just because he calls his dog racist and pretends that he's living in some sort of invisible system called the patriarchy. And what this just really proves is that there's a lot of people out there who just shouldn't have dogs and shouldn't be allowed to own pets. You're not going to discipline your pets. The dogs love that. They love direction. They love, and this is the problem with Joe Biden. I mean, I really do think that this is why the dog has bit all these Secret Service members, bitten family members. It's because they have they have no foundational purpose. And yeah, Zach George, look that guy up. He's a dog trainer influencer, and he goes from talking about things like trans rights to racism and policing, and somehow all of that connects with dogs, and he relates it back to dogs. It's really quite interesting. All right, we're going to be back talking a little bit about Claudine Gay with my favorite guy, Mike Coolidge. He's a conservative activist, and he's actually a Ogle Republican county chairman. We will also be talking about this Methodist church claiming things like the term husband and wife are actually offensive now. This is out of the UK, but I love pulling these stories because I always mark these as, hey, pay attention, America stories. Then, of course, I do want to talk about this violent trans inmate. He sues this jail, and this is in Missouri. Now, McLean County actually has an inmate like this guy. He's a violent sex offender, very violent. I remember talking with the Bloomington police, and they said, "Kat, you don't want to know the details," because I was curious. I was trying to figure out, hey, did he actually rape a kid? And is this guy? I was really trying to get at the at the heart of the issue here. Is he a man or is he a woman? And I was wondering if he raped the kid, like actually. So he did. It's unclear if he raped him with sex organs or with an object, but there was a charge against this guy here in McLean County where he actually raped the child. Okay, so this is a violent sex offender in McLean County. He identifies as a woman. Michelle Blessant, he goes by that name. James Blessant is his true name, his birth name, and he is being separated from the men and from the women and being housed separately as of right now. But in Missouri, they don't cater to the special treatment. You could make an argument that Michelle Blessant, James Blessant, is getting some sort of special treatment because he's being housed separately. If he were to be housed with the men, I bet he would not be safe. crimes even like that don't go over well in prison. Even in places like prison, those crimes don't go over very well. So he probably would not be safe in a men's prison. And the women probably wouldn't be safe if he were housed with them. So he's being housed separately. And it's never women looking to be in men's prisons, by the way. It's only men looking to be in women's prisons because they get special treatment um, if they're in women's prisons. So I'll talk about that. That's in Missouri. Missouri wasn't having it. They were not bending the knee to this crap. Now they're getting sued by this guy who has a history of sexual violence, very violent sexual offender, and he's upset because I'm not kidding you. The inmate wasn't getting women's panties. He requested that he get women's panties because he wants to affirm his truth. And now he's suing because Missouri said, no, we're not going to do that. The Missouri St. Francis County Jail. So we're back now. Disgraced Harvard president Claudine Gay. She has to resign. She has resigned now. So she has, I think, served like over 6 months, something like that. And I mean, her term has just been scandal plagued. Over the past few weeks, she's faced criticism for her comments about Jewish people and about Jewish genocide on campus. And there were calls for her to step down because she did not handle the anti-Semitism on her campus correctly in wake of this Hamas attack that was carried out in Israel on October 7th. She's also faced some accusations of plagiarism as well. Good morning, Morning Buzz. Thanks so much for tuning in. Kat Peterson. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's Kat Peterson 929. And a little bit later, I am going to be getting into this. A violent trans inmate suing a jail because, get this, he was denied a sex change and he was also denied access to women's panties. He wanted women's panties because he wanted to affirm his truth in that he's a woman or whatever. And Missouri they were not going to bend the knee to that. They said, no, you're not getting women's panties. You were a violent sex offender. You're not getting anything. We're not going to give you special treatment, dude. And now he's suing the jail. It's the St. Francis County Jail. It's in southern Missouri. And we're going to get to that story here coming up in just a little bit. But it's time. Patriot Power plug. Mike Coolidge. He's a conservative activist. He's the Ogle County Republican chair. And folks, if you haven't seen it yet, he's got a new Substack out there. It's coolidge.substack.com. Coolidge.substack.com. Coolidge is Koolidge. Mike Coolidge, welcome to the show.
Happy New Year, Kat, and all our awesome Morning Buzz listeners.
Yes, Happy New Year. So what'd you do for Christmas?
Christmas, went to Georgia, spent a lot of time with our nieces and nephew, and came back right before New Year's. Took it somewhat easy on New Year's, had a couple friends over and celebrated the year, and killing time waiting for the clock to strike midnight. Watched the newest Dave Chappelle comedy thing on Netflix, and yeah, he gets a little edgy and all that, but he is, talk about not bending the knee. He does not shy away from standing up to the whole trans mafia mob, and he has some pretty sharp jokes, and I'm going to spoil one of them here, but one of them, he basically says, I'm going to ruin it by ruin the humor, but he basically says, if I ever get arrested in California, the day of my sentencing, I'm identifying as a woman. Like,
yeah,
immediately, kind of to your story of this guy in the prison, and it's not that crazy, but for it makes rational sense too. How do you stop people from doing that?
Yeah, well, and we have an inmate here in McLean County, and he goes by the name Michelle Blessant. His original name was James Blessant, and I remember talking with the Bloomington PD, and I go, hey, did he actually, like, I was trying to get at the heart of the issue here, and I was trying to figure out, hey, is this guy actually a woman or a man, because it was unclear. And I said, did he rape this child? And he goes, "You don't want to know the details of the crime." A police officer told me this. You don't want to know the details of the crime. That's how insane this is. This guy is kind of getting special treatment, if you ask me. He's not being housed with the men or the women. He's being housed alone for his own safety and for the safety of inmates. And I understand that decision because you're in a very tricky spot. But here's
Sure.
the thing: those types of crimes, they don't go over so well, even in places like prison.
Yeah.
You get beat for that kind of stuff in prison. And yeah, so it happens everywhere. Missouri said, no, we're not going to put up with this. You're not getting your sex changed like you want, and we're not doing it where we're going to give you women's panties to affirm your whacked out truth.
Yeah. I
To
mean,
affirm
as
your
I understand it, in California, you don't have to prove anything. You don't have to say you're on, testosterone changes or whatever. I'm talking about, like, if you're a convicted felon and you're going to prison, you can just say, here, put me in a woman's prison, and there's
Wow.
not much they can do. Like, how is that not a recipe for, again, these are violent criminals, all of them, like, literally, well, not all violent, but literally all criminals, many of whom are
Mhm.
violent. You're going to be in there with violent criminals. And yeah, let's stick one biological man in a prison with a bunch of females and see what kind of mayhem is going to occur there. It's anyway. Yeah, and the front lines of kind of the culture wars, we often in the conservative world are, consuming different stuff, and we'll make fun of the mainstream stuff here and there. But to me, I always am struck by when something hits the mainstream on such a massive scale, and we on the right sort of quote unquote win. And in many ways, Steve Chappelle, he's wrong about some things, but man, is that guy bold and does not kneel to the cancel crowd, because if they had their way, if the DEI crowd and all that had their way, he would have been, his cancels would have been, or his specials would have been canceled years ago. This Claudine Gay thing that you mentioned obviously is massively huge now, and I was somewhat surprised with how much huge mainstream coverage this got everywhere. CBS's main story, NBC's main story, like, they're leading with this. And this is so embarrassing to Harvard. It's so embarrassing to the entire DEI cult and the entire, like, diversity, equity, and inclusion cult that is as weak as it's ever been, considering it was just 3 years ago, in the height of all the George Floyd and BLM of 20, that brought us the Safety Act in Illinois, that this just not questioning anything that the DEI cult and the and the identitarians want, we're going to push through. And completely judging people by the color of their skin, not the content of their character. That's how someone like Claudine Gay, and when I say someone like her, I mean somebody who has written 10 pieces in, like, her entire career. Articles. She's written 0 books. This is how does a person like that, a human being like that, get to be the president of what many would is the most and
Prestigious.
help
Mike Coolidge. Sorry, we're losing you a little bit.
Of the yep.
Oh, I think we've got you back. Yeah, I think we've got a spotty connection, but that's okay.
She checks all of the DEI.
Oh, I think we lost you. Mike Coolidge, we're going to have you call in
over her
and get you back. But
I'm sorry, Kat.
If you could call in, Mike,
Yes,
that'd be helpful. 309-451-9299. I'll go ahead and text that over to you. But yes, Claudine Gay, like Mike Coolidge said, I think that this is the watershed moment that ultimately will bring down the DEI, this DEI narrative, this DEI religion. That's really what this is. It's a religion, DEI. And Mike Coolidge, we've got you back. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. But yeah, I think this is, like you said, a watershed moment. And the
whole concept of putting people and elevating them based on their skin color, based on how many boxes of the intersectionality chart they check, is really being seriously questioned now. And you're seeing corporations saying, wait a second, how much did we spend on this whole DEI thing last year? Wait a second, we have 4 or 5 people at this company whose full-time salary is purely to see how diverse we are? Does that really require $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 salaries and all this staff? What the heck are we doing? It's finally being questioned, and that's why I say, like, on mainstream, the really forefront of mainstream culture, Dave Chappelle is there, and his Claudine Gay story is there right now. And I'm sorry, I don't think this way. I have to say too, real quick, I have very few notifications of people who tweet things on Twitter. I have like 5 people that I get a notification that just tweet something. One of them is Christopher Rufo. He is the man who would not absolutely stop revealing all of the plagiarism stuff. He was relentless every single day. Over 50 instances of plagiarism over the years. Stuff that would get you thrown out of Harvard, your freshman, Psych 101 course. You get thrown out and expelled. This is the kind of stuff that Claudine Gay was proven to have conducted in. And he's the one who revealed so much of it. He was a driving force behind this. He should get a ton of credit, Christopher Rufo.
Go Christopher Rufo. And I'm telling you, people were upset because there was this guy, and I forget the kid's name, but he was like, he had his Harvard acceptance letter actually rescinded because of some text messages that came up, from when he was a preteen. So it wasn't even, he was texting, it was the N-word, and he was texting back and forth, which is not great. It's not good at all. But he was a preteen. It was in some sort of group chat. He got accepted into Harvard, and Harvard actually rescinded his acceptance. I believe it was Harvard. And you have cases like that, but then you allow Claudine Gay to continuously plagiarize and to say things that are truly anti-Semitic and to not address the, calls for Jewish genocide that are happening on her campus as a president. Yeah. And that's happening in real time. So you're going to rescind an acceptance letter of a student. And it's just very rules for thee, not for me.
Absolutely. And there's a larger point here too. And you mentioned before I came on, like so many people are, and so many people on the left, so much of this kind of world is devoid of religion. The whole concept of forgiveness. Like this kid who wrote something when he was 12, 13, whatever, and that somehow comes up, and there's no sense of, hey, obviously when you were 12 years old, kid, you said something stupid in a group chat. We're going to forgive you, but obviously that's wrong. Harvard, no, that's unforgivable. There's no, and the concept of in Claudia Gay's case, like admitting when you did something wrong and apologize for it, and the university itself apologize. That's not happening. Her resignation letter wasn't an apology. Wow, I really messed up here. I'm sorry. Please forgive me for my act. I hope I can, work somewhere else in the future. But no sense of contrition. No sense. It's all victim stuff. Harvard letter is while some of this is played out in public domain, much of it is taken in the form of repugnance, in some cases racist vitriol directed at her through disgraceful emails and phone calls. We condemn such attacks in the strongest possible terms. How about you condemn what she did and faked, and the phony stuff she put forward as her own thought and her own work? Like the bedrock of academic rigor is finding out new information and research and pushing the boundaries of information and intellectualism. If you're copying and stealing someone else's work, that's not advancing knowledge or wisdom or any of that stuff, which is the point of the university, isn't it? Yeah. None of that is in this because so many of the people in this world are devoid of these basic human God-given things like forgiveness and having accepted consequences for your own actions and contrition.
Yeah. Well, and you know what really bothers me about this whole thing, the DEI thing, and Claudine Gay would have never been in that position had we not, focused on DEI. The only places really you start to see DEI, You never hear that in China. They never say, "Oh, we need more. We need more white people in China." You never hear that in
Japan
Africa.
either.
Oh,
Japan too. Yeah.
Yeah. It's only in the United States, probably the EU, Europe. Like that's it. I mean, you don't hear any other country saying we need more diversity, and it's only this country where we continue to say that. And pretty soon, this great replacement, I truly believe that's happening, where you change the demographics so much in the United States where it's unrecognizable. And I mean, I have no problem with diversity, but we are the most diverse. Maybe Europe, I think we beat Europe when it comes to diversity. Like there's no other pinnacle of diversity other than the United States.
Diversity is beautiful and wonderful. It's forced diversity that is unethical and wrong. When they say no, these people are excluded. Like, I don't know if you're president and you say that my next vice president is going to be a particular race and a particular gender. So you've discriminated against all of these people and said that my next hire is going to be based on quota, not on her merit. That's what Joe Biden did for Kamala Harris. That's repugnant. That should be something that he apologizes for. And I really think, again, this Claudia Gay thing, even going back, and this kind of thing is a great debate thing that Trump could bring up to Biden in the debate, is you chose your vice president based on quota. And how insulting is that to her? She's been a terrible vice president, but that's insulting to her that she was chosen because of her race and her sex. And that's not how we should do anything. That's not how anyone should be hired for anything. And I think people are finally on a mainstream level questioning that.
Well, Mike Coolidge, thanks so much for joining me here on the Morning Buzz. We've got to take a quick break, but don't forget, folks, it's coolidge.substack.com. Go check it out. And Mike Coolidge, thanks so much for joining me.
Happy New Year, Kat.
Happy New Year. All right, folks, we're back in just a little bit. Find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Kat Peterson 929. Subscribe today. A little bit about the trans inmate in Missouri trying to get women's panties delivered to him in his cell. And Missouri said, no, we're not going to do that. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. If you guys are watching, go ahead, smash that like button. We're back. We are going to talk a little bit about this Methodist church. They're declaring terms like husband and wife offensive now. So apparently it's offensive to use the terminology husband and wife. And I remember a time when a woman who had a history of violence got placed in a man's prison because of trans rights or something like that. Oh, yeah, I don't remember that either. You don't remember a time where a woman had a history of violence and then was placed into a men's prison because of trans rights. That never happens. It's always men who are placed in women's spaces because they get special treatment. And we would condemn this. We really would in Missouri, this inmate, if it wasn't under this guise of trans rights. So we're going to talk about that story here next on The Buzz. All coming up here in just a little bit. A Methodist church, yes, declares terms like husband and wife are now offensive. Oh, this is insanity. So this Methodist church, it's in Great Britain, and you're like, Kat, why a story out of Great Britain? I always pull these stories because I want you to mark this under and file this story under pay attention, America. This is probably, oh, if I haven't found the story yet, it's probably something we'd find here in America. But now apparently it's offensive to use the terminology husband and wife because allegedly it assumes what is not the reality for most people. Okay, so of course it's these gendered terms such as husband and wife, and this is assuming people's gender. And oh gosh, I've got to tell you about that Methodist church in Great Britain. Plus, I will also get to this inmate in Missouri. He's in jail. He sued the jail in Missouri because the jail said, no, we're not going to give you women's panties. He pretends that he's a woman and he wants women's panties to affirm his gender identity, his truth. But they said, no, we're not doing that. You're a violent offender. You're not getting preferential treatment. You are going to sit in your cell and you're going to be in a men's prison and you're not going to be housed with the women. And you're definitely not going to be offered all kinds of sex changes and hormone replacements and things like that. And you're definitely not going to have women's panties delivered to you. So we are going to be chatting a little bit about that. This is a cute story. It's a New Year's story. And y'all know I'm a twin, and I found this and I thought it was interesting. So this New Jersey couple, they are proud parents of two boys who were born in different years, but just 40 minutes apart. So the parents, Billy and Eve, they welcomed their son Azra into the world at 11:48 p.m. on New Year's Eve. He followed shortly after his younger brother, Ezekiel, who was born at 12:28. So this is past midnight on New Year's Day. Now the twins were born on different days in different years, and guess what? They're not the only ones. So the story gets even crazier. So in Connecticut, there is Michael and Aaliyah, and they welcomed their baby boy Steven at 11:59 p.m. on New Year's Eve, and then a baby girl came at 12:02, and their baby girl's name is Suli. So this was a really interesting story where you got two sets of twins, both born in different years, different days, but only born minutes apart. The 40 minutes, that's a long time. That's a long time to be born apart. My twin is 4 minutes older than I am, 4 minutes older. So I thought that was a cute story. I'm going to take a quick break, but when we come back, a couple of stories for you. We're going to run through, and then we'll also talk about this ABC anchor again. I want to hit this story one more time. It deals with Epstein. This ABC anchor, way back in I think it was 2019, she said that she had the story 3 years ago. So she would have had this story in 2016. Now she was filmed in 2019 on tape on a hot mic, saying that she had the Epstein story. She knew everything about the Clintons. She had everything, and she was caught on a hot mic back in 2019. I bring this up because now we're supposed to get all kinds of unsealed court or the sealed court filings. ABC News is supposed to be reporting on this pertaining to the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. They're supposed to all be made public this week. That's next on the Buzz. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. I'm sorry about the audio this morning, but I will make sure we fix it for next week. Mike, he joins us every Tuesday. We had him on Wednesday today because of the new year. But we'll fix that. And a couple of your comments. I believe the release of the list when I see the list released. Yes. So, of course, that has to do with Jeffrey Epstein. And I said this, I am always looking for content that gives me a chance to bring out the old Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself jokes. But jokes aside, I really don't think that we're going to get the list. I'll believe the list when we see the list. Henry, he says the only reason these things get put out there is to divide the country. Dogs are pack animals, and you do not fill the alpha post. They will, and that leads to human attacks with deadly results. If you do not fill the alpha post. Yeah. So if you do not fill that alpha role, they will, that will lead to human attacks. So yeah, they're pack animals, and there has to be a leader of the pack. And that has to be very clear that you're the leader of that pack when you're training dogs. I thought it was an interesting story. I was like, wow, even down to the way we train our dogs, there are political connotations to it. So we're back in just a little bit. I'm going to go grab myself a cup of coffee. Mm, 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 mm. Hey, good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. Thanks so much for tuning in. And yes, we are going to be getting to Jeffrey Epstein. So I talked about his brother. He was actually trying to get these very basic documents. They're called pre-hospital care documents. It's where the EMS, they're supposed to take note of what the body looks like when they transport the body. And he was trying to get access to these documents. He was told these documents exist. He goes and tries to get these documents, Jeffrey Epstein's brother, and they don't exist, apparently. He tries to get them. He can't get his hands on them. They're very basic documents. Tucker Carlson said that he's planning on interviewing the brother here in the coming weeks. And I'm excited for that to drop because there's all kinds of things coming out about Jeffrey Epstein this week. He's the late sex offender, and the sealed court filings pertaining to his sex trafficking. He was found guilty of sex trafficking. All of those court filings are supposed to be made public this week. ABC News is reporting on hundreds of those sealed court filings. And what's funny is the network had the story back in 2016, but they squashed it. So we'll get to that here coming up in just a little bit. But like I said, I did want to talk about this trans inmate. It's an important story because right here in McLean County, there is a trans inmate. He's being housed separately. You could make an argument that that's preferential treatment, special treatment. I understand why they're housing him separately because he could be a danger to both the women and men, and he might not be safe himself in a man's prison because of the nature of the crime. Things like violent sex crimes don't go over so well, even in places like prison. People don't, yeah, they're even prisoners, inmates, criminals. They don't look too kindly on people who commit those atrocious crimes. So, remember that time when a woman who had a history of violence got placed in a man's prison because of trans rights or something? Yeah, I don't remember that either because that statement has never happened. A woman has never been placed in a man's prison under the guise of trans rights. That just doesn't happen. It never happened because there's a reason why we never see women begging to run to men's prisons because of their truth. My truth. I have to run to a man's prison because I'm actually a man on the inside and I feel like a man. That never happens. More often than not, we see men being afforded insane special treatment that would otherwise be condemned if it weren't under the guise of trans rights. Even though the status quo is leaning towards men invading women's only spaces, sometimes a state or a county refuses to go along with the nonsense. So the status quo has been, hey, so that way we don't get sued, so that way we don't have any issues. Let's just let the men invade women's only spaces. I don't want to ruffle any feathers. That has kind of been the status quo. But every once in a while, we get a state or a county who refuses to go along with that nonsense and bend the knee. Missouri did not bend the knee. And now they're getting sued by the guy with the violent history. He's a violent sex offender. And the reason why is because he requested that the jail give him women's panties to correctly affirm his truth in that he believes that he's a woman. So from the Post-Millennial, a violent trans-identified male sex offender has filed multiple lawsuits against staff members at Missouri's St. Francis County Jail, and the South Missouri. So he's got a couple of lawsuits against the jail and then also this Missouri Mental Health Center, alleging various forms of mistreatment, including being denied gender-affirming items such as women's undergarments. So Kelly McShawn was born Larry Bemboon is his name. So he was born Larry. Now he goes by the name Kelly. And he's in custody awaiting trial after escaping the jail he was placed in for attacking sex offender treatment staff. So he's a sex offender, okay, and he was attacking staff, and he, escaping the jail he was placed in for attacking sex offender treatment staff. So in 2003, he was still living as Larry. And he pleaded guilty to sexually assaulting a 39-year-old African-American woman. He reportedly offered to give her a ride back home, but instead took her back to his place and raped her, during which he made racially degrading remarks, including telling her that his ancestors were slave owners. So this guy is a psycho, and that is the most violent crime I think that you could possibly commit. It doesn't get much more violent than that. So that was back in 2003. This is when he was living as Larry. And he now goes by the name Kelly. The woman managed to escape from his residence, and Larry was sentenced to just 5 years in prison. So he raped somebody, and then he was sentenced to 5 years in prison. That makes a whole lot of sense. Not. Now, he was scheduled to be released in 2008. But a prison psychiatrist reported that he met the definition of being sexually violent predator. So there is a definition out there. He's a sexually violent predator, and a second psychiatrist concurred with this. So it wasn't just one psychiatrist, it was two who said, this guy is a violent sexual predator, and he should be defined as such. So Missouri filed a petition to involuntarily commit this guy, Larry, to the state's sex offender rehabilitation and treatment service program. Are you starting to see where this comes from? Okay, so the jury found that he met the legal requirements for commitment. So he had to be committed. His name's Larry at this point, and he was sent to the sex offender rehabilitation and treatment program in Farmington. So this is in Missouri, and he was committed to this treatment program in this rehab facility. So he attempted to appeal the designation, but the appeal was denied in 2010, and he remained in a civil commitment. He has remained in a civil commitment since then. So from 2010 to 2003, he has been committed. Now, according to Riddick's, which is a news publication, Larry began identifying as transgender sometime between 2010 and 2023 to today. So sometime in between then is when he started identifying as Kelly. So he goes by the name Kelly. The lawsuit stems from the fact that he was denied gender-affirming items, and that he is constantly being gendered by his sex. Because he's a man, and people keep calling him a man because, he's a man. A very sick and weak man who hates women. But that's besides the point right now. It's pretty ironic how a sexual predator is begging for a procedure that would de facto castrate him. He is begging for this sex change. He wants them to do it for him while he's committed in this rehab facility. And but if that's what he wishes, maybe we should let him do it. Honestly, he's demanding for this sex change operation. Then maybe we should let him do it. Let's abide by his wishes, right? And the amount of damages he's seeking is $14 million. So he's suing the rehab center. Apparently, he was in jail because he attacked a rehab center employee or treatment officer. And he wants to pretend that somehow he's the victim. You couldn't even imagine that level of insanity 10 years ago. Now, this is the status quo. He's pretending he's the victim, and we're actually going to pretend like he's some sort of victim. This is outrageous. I wouldn't even imagine this level of insanity happening 10 years ago. Would this even be considered? Giving this guy money because we didn't give him women's panties. Now, it's hard to comprehend how we've reached this level of degeneracy, because that's what this is. It's just degeneracy in society. But here we are. And I know it's hard to imagine talking about a $14 million lawsuit because a sexual predator wasn't given panties. This man is a very violent sexual predator. I told you what happened in 2003 with this woman. I told you 2 psychiatrists said, hey, this guy is a danger and he should be involuntarily committed. He's a violent sexual predator. And, but leftists, they will still claim that his trans right be correctly affirmed. That's what the leftists want. They want this guy's trans rights to be correctly affirmed, because I guess trans rights are human rights. But you can't have trans rights and women's rights. But as long as we're all inclusive, that's all that matters. At least that's according to the left. Uh, this is a crazy story, but I'm glad that Missouri is not bending the knee to this guy. He needs to stay locked up, and I don't know. I mean, the more I think about it, if he's demanding this sex change operation that would essentially castrate him, maybe we should let him do it. I don't know. All right, I do have to take a break, but we are going to be talking about this Methodist church in Great Britain. And they're saying terms like husband and wife are now deemed offensive. We are also going to be talking about Jeffrey Epstein. There's going to be more court filings released. ABC News has been reporting on this. I'll be talking about that here coming up in just a little bit. Find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Smash the like button while you're there and subscribe to Cat Peterson 99. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. We're going to be back in just a couple of minutes. Bob, how high did you bounce when you dismounted your horse? I believe you're talking about my Christmas vacation. I did get to ride a couple of horses. It was so fun. His name is Duke. He's 14 hands, whatever that means. He's not a very big horse, but I did fall off the horse. I'm feeling much better. Very, very much moving around today. But anybody who rides horses, hats off to you, because that is a very tough thing to do. And for up to this point, I thought that riding horses was like easy. It's not. But yes, thanks, Bob, for tuning in. If you're watching, smash the like button. Like I said, we are going to be getting to this hot mic. It actually caught an ABC anchor saying that her ups made her ditch the Jeffrey Epstein story. Now, she said this back in 2019. She said 3 years ago she had the story, so that would have taken it back to 2016. What was happening in 2016? Well, Bill's wife, Hillary, was running. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that. Smash the like button if you're watching, and we're back in just about 4 minutes. Hey, good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. And coming up in just a little bit, you won't believe it, Aaron Rodgers. Dang, I like Aaron Rodgers. He is so cool. He accused Jimmy Kimmel of being on Epstein's list. Whoa! Jimmy Kimmel responded very angrily on X, denying it and threatened to sue him. Now, for the record, I'm not accusing Jimmy Kimmel of being on Epstein's list, but this is just definitely newsworthy, and it kind of pertains to the story that we're going to be talking about here next, where an ABC anchor was actually caught on a hot mic back in 2019. I want to pull that out of the Wayback Machine because we're supposed to be getting hundreds of these sealed court filings, and reports are coming out on them pertaining to the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. And some prominent names might be on these flight logs, like Prince Andrew, Bill Clinton, Jimmy Kimmel. I don't know. Aaron Rodgers. He definitely came out and kind of accused him of being on that list. Dick Durbin really fought against the release of this. Well, I shouldn't say fought against. He just didn't want the release to come out. I don't believe. And Blackburn called him out on it. Senator Blackburn. She says, hey, we need to release these flight logs. Dick Durbin isn't allowing this to happen. His committee hasn't heard this yet, and he needs to hear it. And he needs to release these flight logs. So there was a lot of pressure for Durbin to release those. They're supposed to be released. We're going to talk about it here on the Buzz. But first, I do want to talk about this story. The Methodist Church in Great Britain coming out and saying that the terms husband and wife are actually offensive. Those terms are offensive. So you don't have to be a Christian to know that marriage is essential to God's plan. Marriage is very important. It's so important that he made it the bedrock of creation. Male and female, he created them. Male and female, God said. But for some reason, this very clear and straightforward message has the Methodist Church in Great Britain very, very confused. I think it's very clear. He created male and female. He created them. They are the bedrock of creation, and that's the only way we create more humans. Now, according to the Christian Post, here it is. The Methodist Church in Great Britain, they've released an inclusive language guide this month, advising Methodists to avoid using gendered terms such as husband and wife, because such allegedly assumes what is not the reality for most people. So they're gender terms, and you can't misgender anybody. So the Methodist Church is advising Methodists to avoid, and this is a Methodist church in Great Britain, but file this under, hey, pay attention, America, because I bet there's churches out there like this, and I know there's churches out there like this in America. So as Christians, we need to have the courage for conversations that can sometimes be difficult to recognize, that we sometimes exclude people. We need to listen with humility, to repent of any hurtful language, and take care with how we listen and what we say or write in the spirit of Christ, says the guidance book. So there's like a little guidance book. It's called Inclusive Language Guide, and it's updated every 6 months. The guidance offers as a general principle the idea that there is infinite variety in the way that God's creation is expressed in human life, and offered husband and wife as examples of terminology that may sound inoffensive, but it may make assumptions about the family or personal life that is not the reality for many people. So the guidance book goes on. It says, hey, let's avoid using the terms husband and wife because these are examples of terminology that might sound inoffensive. You think they're inoffensive. No. These terms actually make assumptions about a family or one's personal life that might not actually be the reality for many people. Wow. The guidance offered the words parents, or parent, partner, child, and carer as suitable alternatives. So parent, partner, what? Boy, girl, nope, just child. I don't understand. Sadly, I cannot say that I'm surprised when we see churches getting more and more woke by the second. But it's very concerning that we've got religious institutions. They have begun to deny sex-based realities And these sex-based realities are written on the first pages of the Bible in Genesis. They cannot even claim ignorance. They're lying. Okay, this is an ignorance. They're lying. They're condoning sin with more sin. And I mean, this is just crazy. It's craziness. Husband and wife. That is not an offensive. They're not offensive terms. All right, I'm back next on the buzz in the 8 o'clock hour. We're back. Hi, folks. If you're watching, go ahead and smash that like button. I truly do appreciate it. Yeah, I'm watching the guide or reading the guide here, and the guide emphasized why it's important that UK-based Methodist Church uses language that is inclusive of LGBTQ people, and they advise that the language an individual prefers, including pronouns by which they choose to identify. So this is a church. This is the thing. The guide urges steering clear of ageism by avoiding terms like old people, and to embrace anti-racist language by encouraging the use of ethnicity instead of race. Oh, this is crazy. To avoid language that negatively emphasizes a person's immigration status or English skills. So there's this guy out there, the Methodist Church, anti-Semitic and Islamophobic rhetoric are also discouraged. And the guidance also encourages Methodists to tread carefully with their terminology when addressing disabled or neurodiverse people. Neurodiverse people. You can't call them mentally disabled, or you have to call them neurodiverse people. Wow. So I'm unaware of anywhere in the Bible where it says to condone degenerate behavior, all because a group of people have been marginalized. What a bunch of nonsense. Okay, just because a group of people have been marginalized, I don't even know what that means. How are they marginalized? I don't even know how LGBTQ people are marginalized in the United States. There is such a thing as gay marriage. Like, there's nothing more like you can do to gain more rights. Like, or like, what are you talking about? You have the right as much as anybody to exist and to do what you want to do here in America. Sin leads to separation from God. Nowhere in the Bible does it say to accept sin. It says the opposite. I love you enough to tell you the truth. God also does not forgive unrepentant sinners. Everything this church is promoting will stray people. Everything this church is promoting is actually going to stray people away from God. When you attempt to make the family meaningless, you de facto attack creation. There has to be meaning behind the terms husband and wife and child. And yeah, if the church is really going to try to say that non-gendered language and gender ideology are what God wants, then what exactly does the devil want? Because I'm pretty sure the devil is the author of confusion. And I'm confused. I don't know how husband and wife are offensive terms. I have no idea how that's an offensive term. But yeah, it's crazy. Sin, like I said, leads from separation from God. This church is promoting separation from God, and that's not good. Everything this church is doing is going to stray people away from God. You're attacking his creation. It's very clear in the first pages of the Bible. Man, female, created them. When we come back, we're going to be talking about Jeffrey Epstein. Smash the like button if you're watching, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's Kat Peterson 929. o'clock hour. I love the 8 o'clock hour. Good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. And you can always find me live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Before we took the break, I do want to talk about this a little bit more. This guide. So, as I was telling you, there's this church in the UK. They're Methodists, and they have this guide out there. And there's a list of extensive categories of people with whom Methodists are advised to use sensitive and inclusive language when addressing minorities that have been, quote, marginalized or demonized by common culture. Okay. This is absolutely crazy. You can't use the terms husband and wife anymore because these are examples of terminology that may sound inoffensive. And this is what the guide says. It might sound inoffensive, but actually, you're assuming people's gender, and you might make assumptions about the family or about the personal life of that person. And that might not be the reality for many people. So whatever that means, I'm so confused. And the devil is the author of confusion, by the way, not God. But the guide, it urges steering clear of ageism, avoiding terms like old people. Can't use that term, old people. No, 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 no. You have to embrace anti-racist language by using the term ethnicity instead of race. They're different things, by the way. And you have to avoid language that negatively emphasizes a person's immigration status or English skills. So you can't call somebody an immigrant. You can't call somebody, an illegal immigrant, even though that's accurate. You can't call. I mean, I just don't. I am Hispanic speaking. I don't even know if that's safe. Anti-Semitic and Islamophobic rhetoric in this guide that the Methodists released. So this is a UK-based Methodist church. They released this guide and they said, "Hey, as Christians, we need to have the courage for conversations that can be sometimes difficult to recognize that we sometimes exclude people, to listen with humility and repent of hurtful language and take care with how we listen and how we say or write things in the spirit of Christ." Yes. I don't see how husband and wife are offensive, though. How is this offensive? How is calling somebody old people offensive? I don't know. But it says anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, rhetoric are also discouraged, and the guidance encourages Methodists to tread carefully with their terminology when addressing people who are neurodiverse. So they use this term neurodiverse. We're talking about people who have mental illness. Okay, so you can't say they have a mental illness anymore. You have to say that they are neurodiverse. Okay, so the guide emphasizes why it's important that this UK-based Methodist church uses language that's inclusive of LGBTQ people, and advised using language an individual prefers, including their pronouns, by which they choose to identify. Okay. They said, I'm unaware in the Bible where it says to condone degenerate behavior, all because a group of people have been marginalized. What a bunch of nonsense this is. Sin leads to the separation from God. The original sin, right? Nowhere in the Bible does it say to accept sin. It says the opposite. God also does not forgive unrepentant sinners. You have to ask for forgiveness. Everything this church is promoting will stray people away from God. This church, I mean, this is a church. This is a church that says that you cannot use the terms husband and wife because it's offensive. What? When you attempt to make family meaningless, and that's really what they're doing, they're making the family meaningless. You de facto attack creation. If this church is really going to try and say that non-gendered language and gender ideology are what God wants, then what exactly does the devil want? Because the devil is the author of confusion, and I'm thoroughly confused. I don't know when and why people think that the terms husband and wife all of a sudden became derogatory or became offensive. I don't know when that happened, but apparently that's a thing now. So Before we took the break, I was telling you a little bit about Jeffrey Epstein. I do want to get to this story because ABC News, they're going to be reporting on hundreds of these sealed court filings pertaining to the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. And these court filings are going to be made public this week. So there were some prominent names on these flight logs that we think Prince Andrew, Bill Clinton. And it's funny, when you remember that the network had this story back in 2016, but they squashed it. Okay, ABC News, they're going to be doing all of this reporting. Like I said, Dick Durbin, he was trying to, I don't want to say fight against the release of the flight logs, but Blackburn said that he wasn't trying to get these flight logs released. And he was putting it on the back burner. He wasn't listening to it in the Senate committee. And he wasn't pushing to try to find out who was on these flight logs. Who did Jeffrey Epstein traffic humans to? Now, we know, thanks to James O'Keefe, that he leaked the video of ABC's Amy Robach. So that's this ABC anchor. She actually had the story back in 2016. Now, this was a leaked tape in 2019. Now, this recent batch of names, we're looking at additional Epstein associates, alleged perpetrators, co-conspirators, alleged victims, witnesses, and former Epstein employees. There have been several does mentioned in the documents that have now been that are now deceased because they're crusty old men. It's gross. They were sex trafficking little girls to these crusty old men. One of those crusty old men, Bill Clinton. ABC has learned they actually identified Doe 36. ABC News identified Doe 36. So John Doe 36. They refer to all of these does in the flight logs because they're very smart. They operate on being anonymous, okay, in these flight logs. So their name isn't there, but it's Doe 36. Now, ABC News has learned is identified Doe 36 with Bill Clinton. They think that Bill Clinton is Doe 36. Now, Doe 36 has been mentioned in these flight logs, redacted filings, court filings as well, 50 plus times. So that's according to court records. Doe 36, they think Bill Clinton is Doe 36. Now, let's take a trip back in time. Like I said, in 2019, this was a leaked video. It was back in 2019. Jeffrey Epstein, prominent Democrat, and pedophile. He was found guilty of sex trafficking, and then he killed himself while he was in a jail cell. Okay, now this all came to fruition, and ABC News, Amy Robach, she was unaware of this hot mic. Okay, so she had a hot mic going, and she was unaware that the mic was still on. And she ranted while she was on set that she had the story 3 years ago. That would have put it at 2016. Including all of the Bill Clinton parts. She knew that John Doe 36 was Bill Clinton back in 2016. And then she had complained that her producer had killed the story, not unlike how Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. Okay, so he killed the story, the producer. So it's important to note in 2016, when she had the story, Hillary Clinton was running for president. So Hillary Clinton lost bigly. The media tried their best to make sure that Hillary did not lose bigly, but she lost bigly. And O'Keefe got his hands on this behind the scenes footage, this ABC News clip, and he released it. Here it is, the leaked tape.
I've had the story for 3 years. I've had this interview with Virginia Roberts. We would not put it on the air. First of all, I was told, who's Jeffrey Epstein? No one knows who that is. This is a stupid story. Then the palace found out that we had her whole allegations about Prince Andrew and threatened us a million different ways. We were so afraid we wouldn't be able to interview Kate and Will that also quashed the story. And then Alan Dershowitz was also implicated in it because of the planes. She told me everything. She had pictures. She had everything. She was in hiding for 12 years. We convinced her to come out. We convinced her to talk to us. It was unbelievable what we had. Clinton, we had everything. I tried for 3 years to get it on, to no avail, and now it's all coming out, and it's like these new revelations, and I freaking had all of it. I'm so pissed right now. Like every day I get more and more pissed because I'm just like, oh my God, what we had was unreal. Other women backing it up. Hey, yep. Brad Edwards, the attorney, 3 years ago, saying there will come a day when we will realize Jeffrey Epstein was the most prolific pedophile this country has ever known. And I had it all 3 years ago.
She had it all 3 years ago, this woman. And like I said, that was Amy Robach, and she was unaware that she was hot mic'd. Now, get this, it gets even crazier. ABC, they launched a full investigation. And no, I know what you're thinking. They did not launch an investigation into who buried that story, spiked the story, and why they did it. That was not what the investigation was about. The investigation they launched was into who leaked the tape, and then they fired somebody over it. So they actually fired a producer. Her name was Ashley Bianco. Of course, Bianco didn't even leak the tape. Okay. She didn't even take the file from ABC News servers. She didn't know who James O'Keefe was. All she did was mark the moment it happened. And that's actually what producers do. So I want to play this. This is on Megyn Kelly's show. She actually interviewed. Her name is Ashley Bianco. And she goes, look, you know, and did you take the tape? Did you know James O'Keefe? And she goes, "No, I didn't know James O'Keefe. I cut it. I cut the moment because that's what producers do." And she wasn't even at ABC at the time. She was fired from her other job. So I'll explain more. I just think the tape will say a lot. Here we go.
I've worked 7 days a week. I loved my job.
Was this the first time you had ever clipped a segment of an anchor off mic?
No, I mean, we do it all the time. I'm part of my job is I'm like a video editor. I clip off moments all the time. I put together, funny anchor reels of, them off camera doing funny stuff to use later in the show.
Did you go back and watch it later?
I didn't. No, I didn't think about it after that day.
So was that the last you had to do with that clip?
Yeah, I didn't touch it. I didn't do anything else with that.
You never went back to it?
I never went back to it.
You didn't download it, you didn't email it, you didn't transfer that file in any way?
No, not at all. I didn't touch it after that. It stayed in the system. I hadn't even heard of Project Veritas until this.
When was this moment with Amy?
It was in August 19th.
And then in the fall, you decided to leave ABC to go where?
To CBS. And I only left purely because CBS had offered me a good contract. And so I left, and I was just really excited to start a new job.
And so this week you're sitting at CBS doing your job.
Yeah.
And what happens with Project Veritas?
They released the video, and I was shocked, but I didn't think anything of it.
How many days had you been at CBS?
Only 4 days, and I begged, I pleaded. I didn't know what I had done wrong. And I just, I wasn't even given the professional courtesy to defend myself. I didn't know.
Wow. That's explosive, folks. I mean, here we have her. Her name's Ashley Bianco, and she got fired at her new employer, CBS News. She used to work for ABC News when she clipped it. She clipped that moment where this ABC anchor exposes that she actually had the story back in 2016. And she was all upset that they're doing the story now in 2019. And she goes, I had the story 3 years ago. Had it 3 years ago. I had Clinton, all of it. And the producer killed the story. And this Amy Robach, ABC anchor, was upset about that. And she clipped this the producer got fired. Crazy. As for these new revelations, so there's going to be some things coming out about Jeffrey Epstein. I'm a sucker for any excuse to revisit the Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself jokes, and I'll believe the names are being unsealed when I see the names are unsealed. It's too early to tell, but I hope these names are unsealed. We deserve it. All right, I do have to take a quick break, but when we come back, Elon Musk roasting Green Day. That's always good. And a little bit later, I do want to talk about the Harvard president, Claudine Gay. She has resigned. That's big news. She's been facing a lot of criticism this past couple of weeks. for not only her plagiarism, but also the anti-Semitism on campus and how she's not dealt with that as a president. So that's next on the buzz. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. Go ahead and smash the like button. Let me know in the comments section what you think about the Jeffrey Epstein flight logs and court filings being released. Do you think that we're going to get some names? Do you think that, or are you kind of pessimistic like me, cynical? And like I said, I'm a sucker for the Epstein didn't kill himself jokes, and I'm I'm hopeful, but I'll believe that the names are being unsealed when the names are unsealed. Um, and look, as part of a New Year's tradition for these networks, ABC, CNN, CBS, and they like to do this thing where they get a bunch of artists who aren't in their prime anymore and they have them perform when the ball drops at midnight, up until the ball drops at midnight. And we're going to be talking about Green Day because they were reliving 2004 only with MAGA as their new boogeyman, and Elon Musk roasts them for it. Smash the like button if you're watching. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. We're back in just a bit. Good morning. Hey, part of the New Year's tradition, I always find this really funny. The networks, ABC, CNN, Alphabet Networks, they get out there and then they collect a bunch of artists who aren't in their prime anymore. And then they have those artists perform until the ball drops at midnight. Okay, so that's part of their New Year's Eve tradition. CNN, they even got Anderson Cooper. Cooper. Anderson Cooper to get out there and take shots because they thought that that's how they would increase their ratings. They were desperate for ratings, and they had Anderson Cooper get out there again this year and take shots and get drunk on TV because they think that's what's good for ratings. But anyway, the networks, they collect all of these artists that aren't in their prime anymore, and then they have them perform. And a lot of us, we were watching what was left of Leonard Skinner, and some of us caught Green Day reliving 2004, but only this time with their new boogeyman, MAGA Republicans. I'm scared of MAGA Republicans. So that was Green Day. So Elon Musk had some words for Green Day. Not Leonard Skinner, but he had some words for Green Day. And Green Day, and you guys actually hear it in my bump music, and I probably will change it now because they're just rabid. And I actually really enjoy the American Idiot song. So a lot of people, you have some commonalities, I guess. You have something in common with raging leftists, actually, because they are against taking down this a system, this oppressive system. They just don't know who that is, and they have a hard time figuring that out. Really, what it is, it's the establishment, the Yankees and the Cowboys. I've talked about this before. Where the Cowboys, it's big Texas oil. And then you've also got the military industrial complex. Think of your Bushes, Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis is probably in that camp now. So those types of people, military industrial complex, and they love war. Okay. They're like the Adam Kinsingers. Then you've got in the Cheneys, the Dick Cheneys, Liz Cheney. Yeah. Think about that camp. Okay. And then you've got the Yankees. That's Bill Clinton and Biden, Obama, these people, both camps, the Yankees and the Cowboys. It's the Uniparty. And the Uniparty is not for you and I. So this was a Bush era song. This was actually a good song. It was a protest song. And he called it like the Bush's rednecks or something like that. I'm not a Bush person. Um, Bush did 9/11. No, just kidding. But no. So here's the original lyrics of the song. I don't think I can say this word on air. So it's a gay man, but it rhymes with the word maggot. Okay. Well, maybe I'm a blank America. I'm not part of a redneck agenda. Rednecks were the people who the left blamed for not getting their way. Really, who the left needs to blame, it's the people in charge. It's the Democrats. Okay. The Democrat Party is rabid and the Republican Party is rabid in the same breath. Now, there is this faction within the Republican Party. We'll call them Make America Great Again Republicans. They are populist nationalists. JFK fell into this camp. They killed him because he was a nationalist populist president. I've got a special out there. You guys can go find it. I did it for Christmas. It's called Ishmael, Israel, and Emmanuel. But I also talked about JFK's assassination and how they killed him because he was a nationalist populist president who would not be provoked into war with Russia. He did not want to be provoked into war with Russia. So these are the new lyrics. So here we've got Green Day, American Idiot. My point is that I kind of like the song. It's ironic, but really it's not the rednecks where the left should blame for not getting their way. It's not the rednecks' fault. It's the Yankees and the Cowboys, which this song kind of got to. But I want to play the new lyrics here that they performed before the ball hit, airdropped at midnight. Here we go. There you have it. That was I'm not a part of the MAGA agenda. So they changed the lyrics of the song. And some of you young bloods out there, you may not believe this, but Green Day used to be cool. And I'm talking camping out, lighting a bonfire outside Tower Records, waiting for tickets to go on sale, only for the show to sell out after the first couple of people got through the line. Okay, they used to be really cool, us old heads. Now I'm kind of out of that generation that had Green Day. My sister was really into Green Day. I liked Green Day. But yes, us old heads, they actually had to go out and leave the house to buy concert tickets. No, it's a weird time. Your younger kids probably listening in the car and they're like, what? So American Idiot, this song, it was a concept album, and it was brilliant commentary on the times, and it was actually a preview of our current culture wars. But other protest songs from that era kind of sucked. They had a lazy chorus, they had a verse, and then there was this saying that would, rush out of the studios and be uploaded onto my MySpace. It was "No blood for oil," so it was this big, anti-war, Bush going into war. Now, like I said, not a Bush fan. It was a Bush era version of Disney putting a chick in it and making it gay and lame. Okay, so it was yeah, a lot of those songs sucked, but anti-Bush songs were woke before the right culturally appropriated the word from the left. So there's always been wokeness. It's not a new thing with Bud Light or anything like that. It kind of happened with Green Day. They kind of did this woke song, wokesy type song. But it was kind of good. It kind of gave the middle finger to Bush during that time because he was trying to get us into war because the military industrial complex needs fed. And the years have since not been very kind to Billy Joe Armstrong. He's the member of Green Day. Last we heard, he renounced his American citizenship after Roe v. Wade, the ruling, and he threatened to leave America, even though his home state of California, you can continue to allow birthing people and menstruators, because God forbid I call them women. You can continue to allow those people to abort their child up to before the baby comes out. Okay, 9 months, you can clobber that thing in the head as long as it's still in the womb. And give it a couple of years. The Democrats in California and in Illinois, they're probably going to legalize abortion up to the 7th trimester. A kid's going to be 7 years old, and you can just club them in the head and say, no, my body, my choice, club. But Green Day got exactly what was coming to them. And Elon Musk roasted them. So he said this on Twitter, Elon Musk did. He says, Green Day goes from raging against the machine to milk-toastedly raging for it. And yes, that just is so good. They go from raging against this machine, the Bush anti-Bush song that was actually pretty good, and it's actually my bump music. I'm going to take it out now. But Green Day, and now they go from raging against the machine to actually being, proponents for it. The military industrial complex, the big finance Yankees, Cowboys. Yeah. And I doubt any of the members of Green Day are going to see Elon's roasty burn, his burn here, because not unlike all the liberal celebrities who pledged to leave America if George Bush got elected, and then leave America again if Donald Trump got elected, they probably deleted their Twitter accounts, their X accounts. So maybe somebody will share Elon's burn on Threads so they can see it there, the leftists and the members of Green Day. All right, I've got to take a quick break. Find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. You can smash the like button while you're there. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm back in just a couple of minutes. You're listening to The Morning Buzz, Cities 92.9. Good morning. Hey, make sure you smash that like button. I'd really appreciate it. And we're going to be back talking a little bit about dog trainers because the left, they've got questionable moral reasoning at best. And they always try to claim that they're for the little guy. And really, in all reality, they could care less about the little guy and about those people who can't speak or defend themselves. And I've got this story. You're going to like it. Here on the Buzz, smash the like button. Wow, we've got a lot of deals on cities99.com, and I'm jealous because you guys get the deal, and you guys can go get your deal today at cities99.com. We've got all kinds of things. We've got things from Nord Outdoor Power, Romp Jersey Cheese. There's a $25 gift card to Romp Jersey Cheese for just $12.50. So everything's like half off. That's a really cool thing about Steals and Deals. So you go to our website, you type it in cities929.com, and then you can click on Steals and Deals, and there's all kinds of things like a $20 gift card to Rainstorm Car Wash going for $10. So in a world of crazy inflation, this is a great inflation buster. You can bust inflation by getting these deals through Steals and Deals. For example, it's the new year, new me, right? You're going to go to the gym and the gyms are packed. Here's Crunch Fitness, a 12-month membership. It's a Peak Results membership. And typically that goes for $379. Right now on Steals and Deals, you can get it for $189.50. Why? Because you're a listener of Cities 92.9 and you're awesome. So head on over there. There's even this really cool thing. I wish I could get this. This is awesome. It's typically goes for $150. You could get it today for $75 at Steals and Deals. It's cities99.com. Click on Steals and Deals. It's right there. It's a blue line metal American flag sign, and it's from Man-Made Metalwork, and it's really kind of cool. It's this metal blue line. It's a thin blue line flag. I've got one here in studio right next to me. But this one's way cooler because it's metal, and the guys from Man-Made Metalwork made it. So head on over to cities929.com. We've got amazing deals that you can steal. It's an inflation buster, okay? In a world of Bidenflation, we need some deals, and we get that. So bust inflation with the deals we've got, and we've made available to you at cities99.com. So the left, they have questionable moral reasoning at best. They sit there, they claim that they're all for the little guy, and they could really actually care less about those who cannot speak or defend themselves. They really don't care about those who can't speak for themselves or defend themselves. Progressives, they prioritize animal rights, and they simultaneously promote things like abortion. It's a federal crime, by the way, to destroy a bald eagle's eggs. You can't go in and crack an egg open an open fire and scramble it up if it's a bald eagle's egg. That's a crime. It's a federal crime. And in the same breath, the left will promote this as some sort of holy act, the murder of a defenseless unborn child. It's that's about all the logic you're going to find on the left. And by logic, I mean no logic at all. Okay. These people are also very easily brainwashed, the left, and they don't have a value system, okay, that dictates their worldview like you and I have. The people on the right often have way more of a value system, and it dictates their worldview. And the left doesn't believe that there's things called universal truths. They believe that there is no universal truths out there, that hot is not hot, cold is not cold, boys aren't boys, girls aren't girls, and that we don't live in this binary, and that there is no truth, universal truths, which is so funny because even if that were true, say there were no universal truths, which it's not true, But that in and of itself would be a universal truth, that there is no universal truth. So you do believe in universal truths. So yeah, that's not the point right now. Besides the point, that's besides the point. The point I want to make here is that man's best friend is racist, misogynist, and deeply rooted in systemic oppression. Of course, I'm talking about dogs. So the New York Times, there's this opinion editor. She writes this really lengthy piece observing how there's different schools of dog training and how one represents the woke way of training and one represents the anti-woke way of training. So the piece actually mentions this guy. His name is Zach George, and he's a dog training influencer, and he's got like 3.7 million followers on YouTube. It's kind of ridiculous. But he does this thing where he rejects traditional balanced methods of dog training, and he does a more positive training. And he talks about things like his YouTube channel talks about things like pronouns, trans rights, racism, and policing, and then toxic masculinity, and how all of these subjects somehow, in some way, relates back to dogs. So there are these different ways of training, and this is what happens when you don't have a solid foundation that forms your guiding principles. And this is what happens when you don't have God. Okay. When you don't have God, proponents of the positive reinforcement training say you stop bad behavior through a combination of management measures like drawing the curtains if the dog won't stop barking at the passersby. And then there's also reinforcing alternative behaviors you prefer. So, like giving treats to reward moments of not barking. Now, there's a balance trainer. So, there's a counterpart to this. There's a balance trainer, by contrast, might suggest a bark collar. I've actually used on our 120-pound German Shepherd a shock collar. This is a device that emits some sort of negative stimulus, like a shock, a high pitched noise, when the dog gets set off or starts barking or runs down the road chasing a motorcycle, which is what our dog Lightning used to do. And we got that shock collar, straightened him right out, and it's for his own good. A dog needs their pack animals, they need an alpha. And this is why Joe Biden's dogs constantly bite him and the Secret Service members, because they aren't doing balanced training. They aren't physically or providing a negative stimulus when the dog acts out. So, people on the left have no foundational purpose in their lives, and this is the best they can do. Progressives are constantly trying to find ways to make their life meaningful. And one of the big problems of that, and with that, is that there's an absence of religion there, and humans tend to do a terrible job at figuring it all out. And yeah, our political ideology is aligning with the way we train our pets now. So, yeah, this just proves, that there are a lot of people out there, 3.7 million followers this guy has. There are a lot of people out there who should not be allowed to own pets, because that's not good for the dog. If you're just going to let the dog, imagine this. Imagine a world where we live with pit bulls, German Shepherds, Dobermans, Rottweilers, any kind of dog, really. And we just let them go. We don't leash them. Zach George, this influencer, is so crazy that he'd probably go as far as to say that leashing and putting a collar on your dog is somehow systemically oppressive. And it's a part of the patriarchy, this invisible system that everybody keeps talking about. He would say that. It's like, imagine a world where the dogs are not leashed. That's pretty crazy. And just are allowed to do whatever they want. Not good. All right. I do have to take a break, but we're going to be back wrapping up the show. This is The Morning Buzz. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's Cat Peterson 929. And we'll be back on the stream. Hi, folks. If you're watching, go ahead and smash the like button. If you guys are watching, throw it into the comment section. How'd you train your dog? Are you more of a positive reinforcement type, or are you a balanced trainer? So, like I said, we have a 120-pound German Shepherd. And look, this dog is huge. There's no way we're going to be able to get him to listen to us unless we do some sort of negative stimulus or some sort of physical discipline. Now, I'm not saying beat your dog, okay? but there's things called pinch collars, training collars, shock collars, things like that that actually work. And he's a great dog. He's a great dog. Has never bitten anybody. He's a great, great pup. And I'll tell you what happens with positive reinforcement. When you just draw the curtains and get the dog to stop barking because you draw the curtains, or when he's not barking, you give him all kinds of treats. I'll tell you what happens. You get dogs like Joe Biden's dogs, where they're constantly biting the Secret Service agents, and they're just bad dogs. And I like how Henry pointed this out. Hey, dogs are pack animals. And if you don't fill this alpha position, then you are going to get animals that attack humans, and that can result in something deadly. So there is a big problem with, imagine positive reinforcement with a dog that is aggressive. Like it's just wild to me. And smash that like button. Smash that like button if you're watching. And let's see. Without God, humans are just dirt. Yeah. Well, humans wind up trying to figure it out all themselves, and then it just turns out badly every single time when you try to figure it out all yourself. And they have no foundational purpose. That's the thing about the left, and they try to figure out everything themselves, and it turns to crap. When we come back, I'm going to wrap the show up with a little bit of this violent transgender inmate suing the jail because he was denied a sex change. He was also denied, hey, you can't have women's panties. He's a violent trans inmate. The story here is absolutely wild. In 2003, he rapes a woman, an African American woman, and he says all kinds of derogatory terms to her while she's being raped. She manages to get away. He's jailed. They release him from jail, but then shortly after that, two psychiatrists say, no, he's a violent sexual predator. We can't allow him out back into the world. We're going to commit him involuntarily to this rehabilitation center. And I guess he was in jail recently because he attacked the sex offender treatment staff, and he was placed in jail. And he's awaiting trial after escaping jail. He was placed in jail for attacking the sex offender treatment staff that he was at. So he was at this rehabilitation center for sex offending for years. I mean, he was there from, I think, like '08 to today. But then he was recently in jail somewhere between 2010 and 2023. He started identifying as Kelly. His real name is Larry. So yeah, that's the story. $14 million he wants because they didn't give him female panties. Yes, this is the world that we're living in. Degeneracy. Love the pupsies. Yes, I do love the pupsies. And if you love the pupsies, you will give the pupsies discipline. And that's just all comes with it. It's the same thing you do with your kids. You discipline the kid, and you don't beat kids. You don't beat dogs. That's not what that's saying. But the left is saying that discipline is rooted in some sort of systemic oppression, which is just not true. We're back in just a couple of minutes. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. If you're watching, go ahead, smash the like button. You can always find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble every morning, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time. And all this morning, we have been talking about Jeffrey Epstein. We know that those documents, those court documents, they were sealed. They're supposed to be coming out this week. And I told you about how there was an ABC anchor who had the story back in 2016. She had everything. She talked about how she had Bill Clinton. This is Doe 36. ABC News learned the identity of Doe 36, John Doe 36. That's President Clinton. And Doe 36 has been mentioned 50 times in these redacted filings, according to these court records. And man, I sure hope that they will come out. But like I said, as much as I'm a sucker for the Epstein didn't kill himself jokes, I will believe the names are unsealed when the names are unsealed. I still don't know if we're going to get those names unsealed, but we'll have to see. You guys have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll catch you tomorrow morning. We'll do it all over again at bright and early at 6 a.m. Bye-bye. Love you.